And Strategic Support Committee on November 17th. Can we get a roll call, please?
Arenas, Jones, Mahan,
Here.
Jimenez,
Here.
Perales.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And before we proceed, I want to remind the Public Safety, Finance, Strategic Support Committee members and members of the public to follow our code of conduct at meetings. This includes commenting on the specific agenda item only and addressing the full body. Public speakers will not engage in conversations with the chair, council members, or staff, and all members of the committee, staff, and public are expected to refrain from abusive language. Repeated failure to comply with the code of conduct, which will disturb, disrupt, or impede the orderly conduct of this meeting, may result in removal from the meeting. Thank you. With that, let's proceed to the review of our work plan, where we do have one item being recommended to be dropped. Are there any other recommendations from staff or my committee members? I'll look on Zoom. And if not, I'll take a motion to approve the work plan.
I'll move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Do we have any public speakers on this?
There are no hands up.
Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Mahan,
Aye.
Jimenez,
Aye.
Perales.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. Move down to our consent calendar. I'll ask if there's any members of the committee who want to pull an item. If not, then I'll ask for a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public speakers?
There are no hands up.
Can we get a roll call vote?
Mahan,
Aye.
Jimenez,
Aye.
Perales.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. That'll take us on to item D1. This is our Police Department Operations and Performance Bi-Monthly Status Report. And I believe we have our chief with us today, or Lieutenant Donahue. Welcome. Chief, did you want to say something before this?
All right, as soon as it's, there we go. All right, thank you and good afternoon. My name is Lieutenant Steve Donahue. I'm the Commander of Research and Development at the San Jose Police Department. Today, I will be presenting the department's Operations and Performance Bi-Monthly Status Report. Today, we will be covering citywide crime statistics. Then I'll be presenting on other matters of interest, including the Gender-Based Violence Response and Strategy Work Plan update and a brief update on redistricting efforts. We'll begin with our citywide Part 1 UCR crime stats for the first 9 months of this year. As you can see, UCR-defined rapes are up 31% when comparing this year and the 5-year average. And you may remember this number was the same in my last bi-monthly update. We looked at this number comparatively across the Major City Chiefs Association and discovered that 28 of the 70 major cities are experiencing similar increases. A deeper dive into these numbers will be presented to you at the Gender-Based Violence Response and Strategy Annual Report in March, and that presentation will cover the entire year. Next, I will be discussing our Gender-Based Violence Response and Strategy Work Plan update. We recognize the increase across all facets of sexual assault reported to UCR. We are looking into this in an effort to establish patterns and develop strategies to positively affect these numbers. A comprehensive analysis will be provided to you at the March committee meeting. These charts show the status of both the city and countywide work items since the inception of the Gender-Based Violence Response and Strategy Work Plan, and there are no updates to these charts this month. This table shows the San Jose specific work items, and again, there are no updates to this table. This, oh, let me go back one. See if it goes back. Jump to. There we go. And this table shows the countywide work items, and there are no updates to this table. This graphic shows the status on the Sexual Assault Bill of Rights. And as you can see, we're still waiting on the printing of the resource cards. We checked with the county a few weeks ago, and they are still in process. And now we'll move on to redistricting. I'm happy to report that we have movement in the process of redistricting, as a consultant was selected, and we are moving forward with the contract. Due to the holidays, we expect to start work early in the next year, and I've adjusted the expected start dates on this graphic accordingly. And now we are here for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go to members of the public first.
There are no hands up. Oh, one hand just went up. Blair Beekman. Blair, you're unmuted. We can't hear you. It's showing that you're unmuted. It's our only hand up. So
Thank you. We'll go to members of the committee. We'll come back to Blair if he's having issues. So looking for hands up. Councilmember Arenas.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to start off by just saying what a wonderful way to end this year. And I apologize for not being on screen. I'm not feeling well, and I think it's better for me to stay off screen for the time being. So, anyways, I just want to say that this is it's such an honor to be at the end of this year, knowing all of the work that has been done and the work that continues to be in the pipeline. And I want to congratulate everyone, from our chief to Lieutenant Seymour, for all the really good work that has been done. This will be my last bi-monthly report. And I don't know if we will continue to have these kinds of reports in the future, Chair, if this is part of the work plan, as I think this is really important. This kind of pipeline equals to a school to prison pipeline for Latino men or brown or black young men. This is equivalent to that, and I'd like for us to see how we can memorialize it into an ongoing basis, as I'm afraid that we are, even though we have invested so much into this, that if we don't keep an eye on it, it'll go back to sitting in a corner somewhere.
So, Councilmember, did you were you completed?
I
There?
wanted you to respond to see if there is an ongoing, or our city manager's office, to respond to the level of commitment. For, as I understand it, you and I won't be here, but I want us to have an assurance that this will continue to be on the horizon for PISFIS.
Yeah, maybe more appropriate for the city manager's office, considering I won't be here as well.
Sure, I'm happy to jump in. Lee Wilcox, Assistant City Manager. Obviously, if in the transition, the mayoral and council transition, it's our intention now, as we're developing the work plan, to continue these bi-monthly reports, and those will go through, the mayor and council as they kind of figure out their new norms. But it is our intention to continue this, and as I think you saw from some of the work that Lieutenant Donahue put up, we continue coordinate with the county on this work and all other partners, because it is taking, not just the city, but other partners. So I would assume also Councilmember Arenas, as you transition into your new role, depending on your own assignments over there, that we'd be working with you from a policy level and county staff like we are now on some of these issues.
Yeah, that is an exciting adventure, I must say. I know there's a level of commitment from our city to continue with this. I just wanted to first of all just verbalize that to make sure that we have it on record that we're going to continue to commit. And I appreciate that, Lee. I know that Jennifer also has expressed the same level of commitment. I just don't want it to, I don't want gender-based violence to be an area of priority for a certain council member, that it should be an area of priority for all council members. And then we should always treat it as such and keep it in the forefront. So I appreciate your response. One of the things that I do want to mention, and it's not on the work plan, is that there is a excuse me, oh, my cold medicine. There's a South Bay Coalition to End Human Trafficking study that covers housing and supportive services. And this study addresses that question that we have in one of the items on our work plan. And this is the substandard housing RFP that no one's been able to bid on. We haven't gotten a response on since last year, I think in fall. And so there is already a study for the county. And I'm hoping that we can somehow revise that work item so that we can integrate what already exists now, which is that study. And it answers a bit of that question on what are those needs and how are survivors impacted, and not hold up this 150,000 that's meant for the substandard housing RFP. Does that make sense?
Yes, Councilmember Reyes, we can definitely chat with our peers over at the county and better understand where their study's at. And if it's any duplication of efforts, we can certainly hold back from that if we haven't started.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. And so if we could somehow note that on the work plan, in order not to, because if somebody doesn't know this piece of it, what I'm afraid of is that the RFP is going to go out again, and then somebody's going to bid, and then we're going to do this, and we're not going to take into consideration the study that's already been done. Okay, and the second thing is, I think we expect to have 2 crime intelligence and analysts and 2 advocates to support the gender-based violence response strategy work plan. Could you, I don't know if I missed it, but I don't know what the update is on that.
Councilmember Steve Donahue from Research and Development. I know that we currently have one analyst that we just moved to senior analyst, and she's working with our special victims unit and our sexual assault investigations unit. I also know that we are moving down the budget path to try to gain other additional analysts within the Bureau of Investigations that can help out in this aspect, but that's going through the budget process right now. So that's looked at in the context of the department and the city's overall fiscal health and the department's overall work plan.
Okay, but this is from the 22-23 adopted budget, which includes the expansion of that personnel and resources already. So there's already a commitment for that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, if I can jump in, there were one-time resources that I believe in this year's budget as part of the proposed budget that Jennifer put forward. She did recommend those as ongoing, so those have been converted to ongoing, and I believe as of present, those positions are filled and staffed within the police department. I think what Lieutenant Donahue is mentioning is we've given direction as soon as the annual report's done, departments start looking at next year's fiscal needs and areas and referrals. So I think Lieutenant Donahue's kind of talking about this work plan and what may be needed to move forward for the budget office's consideration. But as far as last year's budget process, those positions that were reverted to ongoing have been staffed and are no longer vacant.
Okay, thank you for that. And so can we put that somewhere on the work plan so that it exists, we acknowledge it, and maybe even put a check mark after it if that indeed is completed, just so that new council members and new mayor, whomever, will be able to see the accomplishments and what has been added in terms of resources. I think it's just important for us to paint a good picture of what has already been done. And with that, I'm going to make a motion to approve the report and also to approve the wonderful work that has been done by our chief, by Lieutenant Donahue, by Lieutenant Jimenez, by our Lieutenant Seymour, Lieutenant, oh my gosh, he's escaping my, he's in Vallejo now. Somebody help me out.
Kenny Tran, Lieutenant Kenny Tran.
It is not. It is not, but it doesn't matter. You know what? They're all in my heart. And I just want to say thank you so much for your patience, for your compassion, for your dedication to our city of San Jose, and for supporting this gender-based violence work plan as it strengthens what the system, how the system responds to our survivors so that they have better outcomes and better closure rates and potentially that kind of healing. It's Lieutenant, it was Captain Jason Ta is who I was talking about. I just got a lifeline thrown at to me by my chief of staff, Nancy. Thank you, Nancy. That was Jason Ta. He's he is the one who worked on our intersectionality tool and brought it to life, actually. So he has a lot to do with this, and of course, Shawnee Williams. But anyways, I was just ending my comments by just thanking you all for the work that has been done. I'm so proud of it, and I'm so proud of where we are right now. And I look forward to continuing to work with all of you in a different capacity soon enough. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I pass it over to Councilmember Jimenez, I'll note, I know that the agenda setting or the work plan setting is a practice that I traditionally do as the chair along with the city manager's office. So I would imagine whoever is in that role next year is going to be able to help set up in the same way. And so in your new capacity, Councilmember Dennis, you may want to determine who that is and reach out to them at that point. But I'll turn over to Councilmember Jimenez now.
Yeah, just a question, Lieutenant Donahue. What I'm curious about I'm curious about the level of interaction between the police department and the unhoused population in our city. And I'm wondering if we wanted to get a snapshot as to what that interaction is like. Is there any set of sort of data that you think is possible to sort of plug into some of these reports in the future?
I'd have to ask you, what kind of interaction are you looking for?
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to think of what would be memorialized. So say, for example, officers go, and I'm just thinking out loud here, but officers go into an encampment and they have a certain amount of citations that come out of that, or arrest or detention of someone that came from a particular encampment, things of that nature, right? Just to get a better sense as to where maybe they're potentially is a concentration of some of the stuff that's going on that we're trying to solve as a city as it relates to public safety and the correlation between that and the encampments.
Council member, this is Paul Joseph, Assistant Chief of Police. So we had a recent upgrade to our CAD, our computer aided dispatch system. And part of that update now is that an officer cannot clear an event without noting whether or not the event involves a person from the homeless community. So that's a new way of capturing data that we didn't have previous to this year. Prior to that, we would have to search events and determine how the person identified in terms of the address they provided to us. Now the officer has to make that determination, and it doesn't involve a person identifying themselves as homeless or providing an address that would be consistent with that. So I think we're going to get much better data, and then we can look at all those events that do involve a homeless individual and get the kind of statistics and data you're referring to.
Okay. How much time do you think, because it's a recent addition to the CAD system, right? How recent? Is it just
I
last
believe
month?
it was February or March of this year.
Oh, okay. So it's been running a little while. So I was just going to ask you, how much time do we need to let this run in order to get a good amount of information? But it appears maybe next year, sometime in the spring, we may have.
I would agree. We'll
Okay.
have a year's worth of data pretty
Right.
shortly here.
Okay. All right. And sort of the core of my question is just that we often hear, just that officers take on a lot around our city, right? And that maybe they aren't always necessarily the best individuals to be connecting with some of these folks that are in these situations that are unhoused, mental health issues, things of that nature. And so I need to rethink how to better ask what information we desire, or I desire, but I'm just thinking around that, right? I'm trying to think about if there's a way to better measure and evaluate sort of that interaction, because I think that's going to be important as we continue to go down the path to try to develop a framework, if we will, to finally try to solve some of this stuff that we've been dealing with. And I have no doubt that and I'm glad Councilmember Arenas is here, that the county is going to play a part in some of that as well, as you well know. And so that's sort of where I'm coming from. And so to the extent you can use your best judgment as to what it is that could best sort of touch on that, I think it'd be good to see that moving forward.
Sure. Lieutenant Donahue is offering his services to speak with you more at length offline.
Wonderful.
But I would just say for the record that we absolutely agree. Chief Mata and I do agree that there are a lot of issues that the police department responds to that could potentially be handled by another entity once that entity is created, funded, and put into existence. And unfortunately, there are very few of those entities that do respond to the field on a lot of these events. So currently, for the most part, it is us. But like you say, we'll get a better picture of what really we're responding to once we can take a look at this data.
Okay, and Lieutenant Donahue, I look forward to talking to you, and I'll just throw something else out, so maybe when we schedule a time to sit down and talk, you can help me better understand this, but I'd like to also understand sort of what the direction from the upper echelons of the department is, right, to the folks, to the officers on the ground as it relates to interaction with the homeless population. I'd like to better understand sort of what that direction is that you all are giving to the officers on the ground, and what the expectation is as it relates to some of the stuff they see.
So, Councilmember, I could briefly address that.
Please.
Tony Mata, Chief of Police. The direction is they're just like everyone else in our community, right? Our officers are expected to provide the same level of service to them when we respond. And we know that there's a lot of challenges along with that. So we bring in all the stakeholders, whether it be the county or other nonprofits, to assist and provide resources to the unhoused. Perfect example is our captain, our downtown captain, Carlos Acosta, has implemented several operations downtown where he brings in a variety of stakeholders and makes contacts with the individuals that are on the streets and providing them with resources, whether it be housing, some type of veterans assistance, medical aid, and again, all those resources that are needed for an individual that's in crisis or living in the street. And that's our direction. And we've been doing that for the last over a year and a half. And we are going to continue doing those.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, I've said this during a council meeting, and I got a bunch of some emails and folks reaching out to me that were upset that I said this, but I think it's the truth, right? I think crime exists in all parts of our community, right? Whether you own a home, whether you're wealthy, whether you're poor, whatever, right? It exists at different levels. And I think it's important to acknowledge that in some of these encampments, there's stuff going on that is contrary to public safety and things of that nature, right? And so I know that we're often tiptoeing around, and we need to be sensitive to obviously the population, which I desire to be. I think that's important, and I'm very happy to hear everything you shared. But I also don't want the police not to enforce some of the laws that are on the books. What I hear consistently as an example for my residents in South San Jose in District 2 is like, look, if I did XYZ, that Joe Schmo down the block living in a tent doing XYZ, unrelated to his poverty, but just doing stuff, I'd get in trouble. The police would be visiting me. And so that's some of what we hear, right? And so I want to just better understand what, when we talk offline, sort of how we're approaching that aspect of the interaction, right? Is making sure that, because I'm sure I've seen it firsthand when I've been out in some encampments, talking to a guy. It wasn't super, I wasn't in a suit or anything. It wasn't super apparent that we were from the city. And someone walks up, it seemed to me, just my experience of the public defender's office and being on the street, growing up and doing stuff that I was doing, it seemed very apparent to me that this gentleman was probably popping by to sell some drugs to the folks in the encampment, right? And so things like that, right? How we can address some of these things that exist in all parts of society, including there, is sort of what I'm interested in. But I appreciate the approach generally as you described it, because we need to be sensitive to certainly a vulnerable population, but there are pockets of people doing bad stuff. And so I think that's, I'd like to learn more about how we're handling that, right? And how we're sort of using a scalpel, if you will, not a hammer to knock some of the stuff out. But that's all I wanted to say. But thank you. And I look forward to hearing from you, Tendani.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands from my committee members. Did we want to try Blair one more time?
Blair Beekman?
Hi, Blair Beekman. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay, hold on a sec. Boy, thank you very much. Boy, thank you, Councilperson Perales, for taking time to ask. My hand is up. Yeah, for this item, I just wanted to, you're working on report. You're working on reports for things, and you know how reports are going. Good luck on domestic violence issues continuously. And I was at the council meeting a few days ago. You had a commemoration ceremony for Vision Zero items, and it was interesting that you know, words were spoken that were really interesting to me that I hope we can learn to speak about more, and how maybe we can speak about more here at the open public meeting process, just about ideas of, I don't know, just asking people to really be wary of when they see people out on the streets, when they see pedestrians, when they see bicyclists. You know, this can be a good place to just remind people of that you have to be careful when you see them, and always have a watchful eye. And oh, and another thing is that you know, a car, they have an accelerator where you just lightly touch your foot to the pedal, and you go 10,000 miles an hour, compared to, you know, other forms of transportation. It takes a lot more energy, and we should be grateful for that. We need reminders of that sort of stuff. And so just a few of my Vision Zero things to think about in all these monthly reporting of crime issues. Good luck how we don't have to call it crime, but just learning to take better care of each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair. I'm sorry. Did that myself. And I did, we did close public comment earlier, but I did go back to let Blair, so I see we have a caller in ending in 1324, so if we can let them speak as well.
Yes, thank you for that. Paul Soto from a Horseshoe. Once again, I've been the victim of a lot of the over-policing of these areas. Redlining necessarily meant over-policing and under-policing. in particular areas of the city. You can under-police an area, and that will accelerate the crime. And then that will, in turn, allow you to get public support. We need more cops. So, I mean, we already know how it's like a parlor game, man. We know how the trick is done. You know, ain't nobody David Copperfield here. You know, there's no illusions being created. You know, so we just need to be able to talk frankly and openly about this. You're not going to arrest your way out of social problems. And crime is endemic to San Jose. It was crime that created it. Let me say that again. It was crime that created San Jose. Okay, so it's endemic to the culture. That's why from 1849, which is the time that the police department was formed, until this very day, you still have racism as a part of the culture inside the police department. Okay, I'd like to talk about crime within the police department and not misconduct. You see, because when a police officer commits a crime, it's called misconduct. But when a citizen does, well, it's crime. We need to arrest our way out of it. Put him in jail, put cuffs on him and arrest him, point a gun at him and threaten him with his life so we can put him in jail. That's what we're doing. And so I applaud Councilman Jimenez for his very measured and very more comprehensive approach and a more sensitive approach. And I know to associate sensitivity with the police department is kind of a.
Back to the committee.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands up from my committee members. Appreciate the dialogue and the comments. And just want to say I'm glad we're finally moving forward now on redistricting, and we were able to secure a vendor, and we're a year behind schedule or so, but I think by the time this work is completed, the opportunities that it'll present for us in hopefully helping to redistribute resources will be helpful, and hopefully you have more resources at that point to redistribute as well. So that's it, and I ask for a motion to accept. We already have a motion. Okay.
We don't have a seconder.
We don't have a second. Now we do. Can we do a roll call vote, please?
Arenas,
Yes.
Mahan,
Aye.
Jimenez,
Aye.
Perales.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, now we'll move over to item D2, and this is our Police Department Reform and Operational Improvement Recommendations Report. And we have our chief and our assistant.
Operational improvement. I just want to make a few comments before I pass it over to Lieutenant Donahue, in that the first reports earlier this year that were handed to us in terms of police reform and recommendations included nearly 100 recommendations. And at that time, the council and the mayor recommended that we take a look at the top 10, which was good for us. Now we have over 500. In fact, we have 531 recommendations, and that we're working on, and we're committed to review and look at. And since taking this position, my priorities have been to stabilize our resources, work on police reform efforts, and to increase our community engagement. And one of the goals, as listed in the memo, is continuous improvement and innovation of service delivery. And what that entails is continually evaluating and developing operation, services, and policies. And we're committed to doing that. And as we look at these, I want the committee members to, what we're looking through at our lens is what is reasonable and sustainable for San Jose and the San Jose Police Department, and what fits and what is needed here in this city as we look at these recommendations. We also look at what does the entire community want from our police department, and also are these and to ensure that these recommendations do not limit our officers from doing the great job that they're doing in keeping our communities safe, while also maintaining our department's morale. So these are some of the things that we look at, and I know Lieutenant Donahue will go into more specifics into what we're doing, how we're doing, and how we're addressing these recommendations. But I want the committee and the community to understand this is a priority for us, but we also have to be reasonable in how we're taking a look at these recommendations. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Donahue.
Thank you, Chief. My name is Lieutenant Steve Donahue. I'm the commander of the Research and Development Unit of the San Jose Police Department, and I'll now be presenting the Police Department Reform and Operational Improvement Recommendations Report. Today, we'll start by discussing how each recommendation is prioritized and categorized. Then we'll talk about the status of the recommendations. I'll also provide you with a brief overview of how a policy is implemented or changed. And finally, we're going to look at where we're going from here. We'll start with what is considered when we receive a recommendation. In your reports on page 7, there's a graphic illustrating the questions we ask under each of the factors we consider when we set the priority on a recommendation. We look at the potential effect of that recommendation. We look at our staffing, budget, and workload, potential workplace changes, and collaboration and responsibilities both internally and externally. And after analyzing all the available data, we place that recommendation into one of 4 categories. 1, we agree, and we're going to start working on it right now. We call that currently in progress. 2, we agree, and we'll work on it in the future. We call that agree, but not started. 3, we disagree, and we won't work on it. Or 4, it's something that we already do, and we're going to continue to do that, and we call that maintain. Now, once a recommendation is completed, we'll mark it as such and move it into the completed category. And I'd like to note that this process is not done in a vacuum. We work with our community stakeholders to inform our prioritization. For example, last week, we met with Sacred Heart Community Services to discuss reimagining recommendations. And we also work collaboratively with the City Manager's Office, the Office of the Independent Police Auditor, and other community stakeholders, faith-based groups, and intergovernmental stakeholders. Now let's talk about the recommendations. As the chief said, we currently have 531 recommendations from 10 different sources, and the vast majority of these came in the last 2 years. We also researched all the pending recommendations, going back into those from the Independent Police Auditor, the City Auditor's Office, and the University of Texas El Paso study to make sure that we made informed decisions for our prioritization. In total, the police department is managing 494 of the 531 recommendations, which is 93%. The remainder 37 are overseen by the city manager's office as they apply to other city departments, such as the housing department, Parks, Rec, and Neighborhood Services, or the Office of Emergency Management. The most noteworthy number I'm going to give you today is 226. That's the number of recommendations that have been completed. That's 42% of the recommendations we've received. When we add the 26 recommendations to maintain a current practice, it results in 47% of the recommendations we've received are in practice and fully implemented. I can't express how proud I am of the people in our department who embraced police reform and put their nose to the grindstone and worked to make these recommendations happen. It's an incredible feat to make such widespread institutional change in such a short period of time. Now, that being said, the work's not done. We still have 224 recommendations to work on over the next few years. The majority of these future recommendations revolve around changing policy. They also speak to community engagement and training. 104 recommendations are currently in progress, meaning we're working on them right now. They're spread throughout the department. So, for example, Deputy Chief Shab in the Bureau of Field Operations is developing a work plan for a community engagement consultant that will inform our community engagement efforts citywide, divisionally, and program specifically. Likewise, Lieutenant Max Zuniga is working on revising the Internal Affairs Unit guidelines and department policies regarding recommendations from the Independent Police Auditor. And Lieutenant Jessica Welker is bringing the Incident Command System training to all the commanders in the department. Many of these in-progress recommendations will be completed over the next year, creating the ability for us to move some of those recommendations that are not yet started into our workloads. I'm going to change gears now and talk about how a policy has changed. The reason for this is that 53% of all the recommendations we've received involve either creating a policy or changing one in existence. And typically each policy starts off with research. What do the academics and studies say should happen? What are best practices? What do other agencies do? What do our internal experts say on those topics? And from there, the research and development unit creates the first draft of a new policy or a policy change. Then it goes to external stakeholders and the city attorney's office for legal review, creating a second draft. After that, if it involves workplace change that would trigger the meet and confer process, it's moved over to OER and the POA. It also goes to command staff review, where every lieutenant and captain in the entire department has the opportunity to review and comment on that policy. And we found this is critical for organizational change management and messaging. You'll notice on this graphic, we have an asterisk next to community review. And eventually, this is where the community will be provided the opportunity to review and comment on major policy changes. We're in the process of acquiring a technology solution to allow for posting of the policies and collection of community input. We expect that to be able to launch early next year. And when this comes to fruition, it will complete 4 of the recommendations. Any changes that were made after the first legal analysis need to be reviewed again, and then the chief gives his final stamp of approval before any policy is implemented. Upon implementation, all policies are posted to the public-facing portal on sjpd.org. This entire process takes about 8 to 12 weeks, depending on the complexity of the change or the new policy and any stalling that may occur with stakeholders. This timeline may be sped up in exigent circumstances, but that comes at the cost of slowing other timelines due to our workload saturation. So where do we go from here? Well, moving forward, we're going to continue toward implementing the currently in progress items. We'll seek funding for those 78 items necessitating budget consideration. We will engage the community and the Reimagining Public Safety Community Advisory Committee to inform our prioritization. And we will, whenever possible, move items from the agree but not started category into the currently in progress category. And finally, we'll report back to this committee on our progress next fall. Now, before I conclude, we would like to publicly thank all the members of our community, our stakeholders, city departments, and especially the police department's sworn and professional staff that worked hard to complete 226 recommendations. Their efforts cannot be understated and are appreciated by the department in reimagining and reforming the face of law enforcement in our city. So thank you. And now we're here for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. We'll go to members of the public first.
Pancho?
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Poncho Guevara. I'm the Executive Director of Sacred Heart Community Service and a member of the Reimagining Public Safety Community Advisory Committee and the Race Equity Action Leadership Coalition. I just wanted to express my my gratitude for some of the work that's happened thus far, but also a degree of frustration that we were 2.5 years into this conversation about reimagining, and it doesn't feel like we've done a lot of that reimagining work yet. There has been a lot of work on police department reform, and we give recognition to some of the work that's happened there. But a number of the elements of reform need to stay on the priority list for, I guess this will be the third council, reconstituted city council that we may be looking at that might be taking up these issues over starting next year. And so setting that aside in terms of the fact that we haven't made a lot of progress yet, one specific request that we'd like to be able to see happen is utilizing some of the resources that were ostensibly supposed to be set aside for process this coming year to actually set up an ongoing entity within within the city, perhaps as was recommended as part of the Reimagining Public Safety Community Advisory Committee recommendations, an Office of Violence Prevention that could be a place of being able to innovate some of these ideas that happen outside of the context of the department of the police department, but looking for alternatives, being able to look at crisis intervention response or community mobile crisis response or other types of interventions that could happen there, investing in expanding prevention resources targeting specific communities, including the unhoused, and being able to look at that work. And we'd love to be able to partner with you in the future. Thank you for members of the department meeting with myself, but you did not meet with the Racial Equity and Community Safety Committee at Sacred Heart. We invite you to do so as well. Thank you.
Sandra?
Good afternoon. My name is Sandra Asher, and I'm the Disability Community Representative from the RIPS Committee. Apologize for my laryngitis today. I do appreciate the time that the staff and the police department took to review our recommendations. However, I have serious concerns. One of the most concerning things is that you disagreed with all of the oversight recommendations. The priority determination was also completely missing a community impact and community relations lens. It's troubling given the lack of trust the public has currently with San Jose PD. I also noticed that many of the different recommenders had overlap within their recommendations, and it seemed that you could have consolidated to see where there were multiple stakeholders making similar recommendations and thus maybe reducing your workload. Specifically to items number 204 and 207, I'm glad that the department agrees. We ask that the disability community members be part of the team drafting and reviewing the draft work plan, reviewing the RFP document, and being on the evaluation panel for submissions for selecting this consultant. Otherwise, we will have training plans addressing the needs of the disability community, but being developed without the disability community being involved. For item 205, regarding evaluation and revamping of CIT, best practices may not address the needs of the disability community. We ask that you work specifically with disability organizations to provide input into updating your CIT training. For item 439, we specifically asked for non-police crisis response or an expansion of trust. And the department's response was that you have PERT and MCAT. These both can include law enforcement. I think there is definitely given.
Maria?
Good afternoon. This is Maria Dane. I'm Executive Director of Parents Helping Parents. We support thousands of families each year who are raising children with disabilities in San Jose. Appreciate the time that the staff took to review these recommendations. For our families whose children have autism, mental health challenges, are nonverbal or deaf, interactions with law enforcement community can result in trauma, injury, or even death if the police are not trained to support those with disabilities. In fact, the majority of those incarcerated in Santa Clara County are people with disabilities, particularly in the intersectionality of people of color who also have a disability. So it is critical that police reform be thoughtful around how we are interacting with those with disabilities. I'd like you to have another look at item 204 regarding enhanced training and in regards to enhancing training to include some disability issues. We're glad to see that your department agrees with it, but it is not a priority. We would like to see it be made into a funded priority and include those with disabilities for feedback on the process. I echo Pancho's comments regarding continued urgency and speed in continuing this important work, and echo Sandra's insightful comments regarding involvement in the disability community and reaching national standards may not truly address the needs of those disabilities. We thank you for your time.
Blair?
Hi, Blair Beekman here. People like Pancho and the last speaker, they can speak well to real specifics that that we're all hoping for with the future of police practices, and good luck into our community efforts. I hope the concepts of a peer review program, not just for domestic violence issues, but for many police issues, can be better considered into our future. And my own work with accountability with technology practices, can that possibly have an oversight committee of its own in the future with new technology that comes into a city, to have a public review process, possibly to work in conjunction with a police review board, or say a houseless board to review issues. With that said, there are important ideas to consider. Exigent circumstances, that's actually, I hope, can be a set of policies that can be brought to the Reimagine Safety Committee to consider, to be allowed to consider as public community process for a community to decide together what is better practices of exigent circumstances. That's trust. That's building trust. And for me, on my end, what I try to do, I hope we can learn to talk about an overall philosophy of a city and a community that is working towards a future of more community involvement with community direction and leadership as how to talk about policing issues. It's too loud. Okay. Yeah. So I hope this can be understandable and agreeable. What we really have a future to work towards, and we need to build a good open philosophy. Thank you.
Kylie?
Hello, thank you to all of you for being here today. My name's Kylie Clark, and I'm the manager of advocacy and public policy at West Valley Community Services, as well as a member of the Real Coalition. The coalition, as a strong advocate for a city that is safe for everyone and for public safety reform, has been working on this process for a long time. And as others have said, the city began this work nearly 2.5 years ago. And I really appreciate the work that has happened during this time, but there has been a lack of work in results given the amount of time that has passed. To reimagine is different from to reform. San Jose is an opportunity to be a leader and to make exciting, unique, and innovative progress in changing how the city approaches public safety. The City Council needs to recommit to making this a priority because it is a priority for those that you represent. And an urgent problem in San Jose, lives are lost to the city's current system every single year. We're requesting an investment of resources that were set aside for the process in establishing an Office of Violence Prevention. This infrastructure is absolutely necessary to accomplish the changes that we've demanded, and the lack of infrastructure is undoubtedly sharing some of the blame for the lack of progress that's been made so far. Additionally, we expect the city to partner with community organizations and to engage with the community throughout this process. This includes planning and implementation. Community organizations like those who are members of the Real Coalition will be key in accessing and engaging your constituents. And we as CBOs commit to dedicating our time, energy, and resources to working with the city to engage the community and move forward with this process. We hope that you will commit to this as well. Thank you.
Derek?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're a little quiet.
Okay, let me get my phone a little closer. Thank you for hearing me today. My name is Derek. I am a staff at Sacred Heart, a community organizer, and a member of our resident in District 5. I'm a little bit confused, I think, about some of the recommendations being disagreed with or quote unquote already happening. And I have questions about whether or not these recommendations were read in full. And I don't mean to like disrespect anybody's work, but there's things like the mental health response proposal, recommendation number 439, that clearly calls for a response without police for mental health responses and investing in trust. And since SJPD officers are already calling trust, it seems apropos for us to think about that a little deeper, rather than insinuating we are continuing in a practice. And then some of the recommendations are simply calling for a study before an actual recommendation or recommendations are brought before the city council. And so I'm not sure why those were disagreed with, as if they were trying to pull back laws or municipal codes that already exist as a whole, or like policing the unhoused, those types of things. So I do have some serious questions about sort of the depth that was taken into like researching some of these recommendations, and I'm really hoping that we can find some clarity. Maybe some of the council members here can ask. Thank you.
Sean?
Hi, everybody. My name is Sean Girth. I'm the Executive Director of Educare California at Silicon Valley, and I want to thank everyone who's made comment before, and I do appreciate the work that goes into the process and how hard this is. I also want to share my frustration and represent the frustration of the community, the Santee community in which I work, for how long this is taking. And when we recently had a nonpartisan candidate forum at Educare, the community spoke quite passionately about how often they call the city, about how much they're trying to find out what's going on with public safety, and how they continue to get answers that are either no or why things cannot happen. And so I agree with the comments of Poncho and Kylie and others calling for more services and for the office to be established. And I also want to underscore that the longer we take to get action and start moving on this, the people who are most impacted are people living in communities who are often working multiple jobs, who don't have the ability in the middle of the day to carve out an hour and a half to come and make public comment. But it is their voices and their children and their families who are not being served the longer we wait to take action. Thank you.
Claire?
Hi, my name is Claire Kennedy, and I'm the Policy and Advocacy Fellow with the Silicon Valley Council of Nonprofits. We are also members of the nonprofit Racial Equity Action Leadership Coalition. In 2020, almost 100 nonprofits called on the city of San Jose to evaluate meaningful alternatives to policing, which eventually led to a community process called Reimagining Public Safety, or RIPS. It's disappointing that so little progress has been made in reimagining. The investments in violence prevention and intervention have not kept pace with increased funding of policing. Please invest in community-based solutions to violence prevention rather than continue to rely on downstream solutions that we know do not prevent crime and violence. We invite staff and members of the City Council to partner with the community and nonprofits in implementing real alternative solutions. Thank you for your consideration of these comments.
Back to the committee.
Thank you very much. Go to my committee members. Councilmember Jimenez first.
Yeah, just a question to Lieutenant Donahue. I guess it sort of touches on something that was mentioned, although there was a lot that was said. So just looking at the priority determinations, right? You got about 7 things that are sort of dictating how we approach this, and so. Can you help me better understand? And I apologize if it's in the report and I didn't see it, but how? And I see the I think on page 7 it goes through some of the potential questions, similar to example questions that are asked to help. So how do you determine? How does the police department determine what they're going to work on first?
And before you go, just if we don't mind, if we can display the slides, if we start to reference them. So this would be slide 7. And similarly, Lieutenant, if you're referencing one, we can all ask our presenter or to.
Yeah, page 7 of the memo.
You can actually, we can go back to, I think it's slide probably 5. I can't see. Keep going. Maybe 4 or 3. It's the one with the, it looks like a starburst. Yep, that one. So these are the 7 categories of questions we're going to ask ourselves. So when we get a recommendation, in each one we look at individually. First and foremost, we read where it came from, what was the intention behind it, where was it born, essentially, and looking at it in the context of whatever the group or the presenter was, be it the city auditor or the RIPS committee. And after reading and understanding the recommendation itself, now we look at how is this going to affect us? How will it affect the department? How will it affect the community? How will it affect other stakeholders? How will it affect other recommendations? Like if I do A, what's the cascading, result of that? So that's kind of this interconnectivity part of it. Like, how does this recommendation, it's not in a vacuum. How does it bounce off everything else around it? And then we're going to look at our staffing. How many people is it going to take to do this thing? And is that something that we can tackle with our current staffing? Just the personnel available to work on it. And then also, what is it going to do to staffing? Like, is this something that's very expensive and going to cause us to not have the budget to have officers later? Or is this something, do we need to increase staffing to meet the demands of this? Like, are they asking for an additional unit or more personnel to respond to certain kinds of events, that kind of thing? We look at our budget, obviously. Where's it going to fit into our current work plan? And can we afford it? Is it already paid for? Do we have money for it in the reimagining process? Do we have money for it in our current operating budget? And if not, how can we get that? Do we need to apply for grants? Do we need to...
And I'll just, so you're going around the starburst, right?
Yeah.
So, which I appreciate.
It's a long answer.
No, I know. And I know there's a lot, I know there's a lot of recommendations. One, it gets complicated. So I totally understand that. But I guess what I was just in line with some of, and just because I don't know if we need to go through the whole thing, but I sense where you're going with this, which I know it gets complicated. But if I guess one of the things that comes to mind in looking at not this particular slide, but page 7 in the report, where it touches on obviously the different categories, is just, is there anything that you use as it relates to, I think Poncho may have referred to this, but the impact on the community, if you will. I don't see it necessarily in part of the wheel and the spokes, if you will, right? That is part of one of the things you use to categorize whether this is moving forward and when it's moving forward, right? So as an example, if there was something that did require more money, more officers, whatever it may be, right? But if it was deemed super important to all these different committees that are meeting, to the council, like, I would like to know that, like, look, this is probably the most impactful thing, right? But it's going to require X, Y, and Z, and we don't have that just yet. So if you want us to do this, give us the money, which is, I think, a reasonable approach. But I'm just wondering if there's, when you're thinking through this whole complicated space of all recommendations and the complexity around each one, is there any consideration as it relates, or has there been any consideration as it relates to the impact on the community perception, as it relates to the relationship with the police department in the city? And that's a wordy question, but
Assistant City Manager Wilcox wants to touch on this.
Thank you, Lieutenant Donahue. This is a really good question, and I think we kind of grappled with it as a team as well. We went back to the original direction, and so when the after action reports came forward, 21st century policing and variety, the RIPS recommendations, some of the core discussion with the mayor and council and the direction to us was, we don't know how to prioritize this ourselves. We need to better understand some of the trade-offs. What does this all look like together? So this is, staff's attempt to put it all together and to kind of rationalize it from, one lens and bring it forward. And we discussed this question ourselves, and I asked the chief of it quite a bit. But I think to answer your question, I would say I think that's why we're saying our next step is engaging the community even further, and recommendations 10, 11, all the ones on page 2 of attachment A, kind of prioritizing just our own community engagement consultant and those resources, because that is the next practical step that I think we need to do as staff. in some ways we're done with the first act of a play, and now we need to, add more variables and lenses here, and try and do that in the new year, so that we kind of understand impacts, but do that, in advance of the budget process, because as we've pointed out in this memorandum, some of these things have a cost, and as you as a council's decision makers at least need to have that information of what staff's perspective, what we're hearing from the community, and then any possible, budget impacts and things that you may want to move forward. So, that's, I don't know if the chief or assistant chief want to jump in here, but it was kind of my assumption is, this was a first kind of final product of putting it together with some rationale and framework. But our next step was to further engage the community around that question, council member.
Okay, and I think there's some pending meetings that I'm going to be taking as well, that I'm sure some of the other colleagues have taken, as it relates to sort of people's concern about some of this stuff moving forward, others not. But please.
When I'm listening to the callers especially, and I'm hearing their frustration, I think the frustration, and I don't mean to speak for them, but what I'm hearing from their calls is that 2.5 years later, particularly as it relates to reimagining as opposed to reform, there still aren't entities other than the police department that respond to certain types of calls for service. And I understand that frustration. I think the chief and I would agree with these callers that maybe the police department isn't ideally suited to handle certain types of events that we handle today. However, until there is an alternative, we don't really have the option of refusing to respond. So in other words, if somebody calls about a person in public doing some behavior that's potentially driven by a mental health crisis, or someone calls about a crime that has as its root cause that someone's in a desperate situation living on the streets, we still have to respond to that call. We can't just say at this point, well, there's a significant portion of the community that would like someone other than the police to respond, and there isn't anyone else to respond, and we're not going to respond either. That's just not an option. So I agree that it hasn't been as quick as a lot of folks, and maybe even the police department would like, but we don't really have control over whether or not there's an alternative response to a lot of these calls for service.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That makes sense to me, and I think that was part of what I heard, but I think it's probably more the concerns probably run a little bit more deeply, but I understand what you're saying. I can't help it when I think of all these outstanding sort of items, think about sort of I think it's like the end of year outstanding audit recommendations. And I think I'm trying to remember exactly how it's framed in that particular document, but there's certain recommendations that give us the biggest bang for our buck, assuming that we solve those recommendations, or we address those, or get whatever department it is to do that recommendation. I think something along those lines would be helpful in this space, right? Like, number 50, I mean, I'm making this up because it's on the screen, but number 54 in the list of recommendations, that one has the potential to be transformational. So even though it's a big lift, it's a lot of resources, you don't have the manpower, on and on, right? This is the one we're going to tackle, right? And to the extent there can be agreement around something like that, I think it would be helpful. And so I appreciate you saying sort of done with Act 1, and then now we're going to Act 2 to try to figure out a path forward. But maybe it requires just more engagement of the council to guide this a little bit more. So obviously we take ownership of that, but thank you for all the work. I know there's a lot. We've said that many times, and I appreciate your stab at trying to resolve some of these. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands up from my colleagues on the committee. Give them a second, and then I'll add some comments here. Okay. Yeah, first off, I want to say thank you. Extremely comprehensive. There are a lot, clearly, of recommendations that have come across the table, and I think this is our first real comprehensive collaborative list of everything, where it's from, what you're doing with it, right? What's been completed. Maybe we have some, discussion or discrepancy in that from what we heard a little public comment, but for the most part, right, I think you've really made it easier on the council to collect all of these different reports and recommendations into one really concise report, and then I think it gives us a better opportunity to determine how we move forward. And I want to share some initial thoughts because I know we heard this from the community members that called in. I had a chance to meet earlier this week with some members of the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force, and they similarly shared some frustration on the delay in the time. I will, and I thank you, Assistant Chief, too, for giving the answer you did. I will say that part of this, because it is so comprehensive, and there are 531 total recommendations, inevitably, right, just to get to where we've gotten here has taken years, because, for one, it wasn't just the RIPS process that where we got these recommendations. These are from, again, dating years back, and including decades back with our independent police auditor. But compiling them all together in this reimagining process, this is really the first time we've ever done something like this, where we prioritized that through the council, and asked our city manager to lead on that. Through that, right, we had the RIPS process because that gave us an opportunity to engage our community, our public better as we were doing that. Earlier this year, the council, as that RIPS process was completed and the council got its first report on it, that was really our first opportunity collectively from our police department and city manager's office. We had committee members or representatives from the RIPS task force present, and the council was able to chime in on that. There was a lot to digest there, and that's why we really asked for this, which is, hey, let's get a better understanding of what can be done, what is being done, what is completed, where there are challenges, as you've denoted here, in the form of a disagreement on what maybe would not be worked on, and then determine how do we go forward. And so I will say, considering how long I've seen things take to be accomplished in the council here, my 8 years, there are some very small, minor policies that I've seen drag out over the course of years. And so to have 530 plus really be moving at this pace is actually quite quick for government type of work. And that's only because there have been so many participants from the city manager's office, from our police department, to make that happen. But because it is so comprehensive, I think it is hard to digest. And even looking at this report, when you have something this big, even though we wanted it all together, my first reaction was, well, that's probably better to break it back up, right? Because when you have something this big, right, to try to tackle it all at once and look at it all at once, I don't think you get as good of feedback, one, from us, from our community, and quite frankly, looking at some of this, it shouldn't all lie on your lap. Right? From the start, we knew that. We knew that some of these recommendations don't necessarily reside under the wheelhouse of the police department, which is why, and I'll go to the list now. We heard some frustration from our community members on, for instance, the oversight, the 5 oversight items on the attachment 1. It's and so it's not on the slide, so you don't have to worry about putting this up. But it's 231 down to 235, and then looking back up at the alternative approaches as well to policing 225 and 226. When you look at those, for our community members that are able to look at that, or if they look at that later, to the far right of the screen, you have the budget considerations, but then you have the city manager level management, so that really where that resides. And then in the details, the status of where you put, you have denoted kind of where those fell off. So I think that it may be too simple to have the understanding from our community where your report is denoting that you disagree, right? That's been the sort of the terminology you've used. But in reality, these fell off for different reasons, not necessarily because, okay, hey, the police department disagrees, we shouldn't do this, and that's it, that was end of story, and that's why we're not doing it. Not necessarily the case. These were some things that really didn't even fall under the wheelhouse of the police department, where we didn't necessarily need our police department or our chief to make a decision, hey, should we do this or should we not? These are things that, quite frankly, right, the council would have to make a decision on, and we did in our priority setting process to determine which of these, if any, this year do we want to add to our work plan and our roadmap to work on this year. And as you denoted, considering everything that the council did decide on, right, these things were not included into this year's roadmap or work plan. That doesn't necessarily mean that they couldn't be included next year or in the future. And so that's where I think maybe some of this starts to get lost, that a community member may look at this and say, wow, that's dead in the water because the police department disagreed with it. And I think that's just the wrong interpretation. I'm not blaming, I'm not blaming you again. I think this is because we've asked for this. We've asked for this all to be encapsulated in one. And I think it may then lead community members to look into this and point the blame at the wrong people, which is our police department. And that's really not where the blame should be pointed. It's pointed at us as elected officials. And when we set our priorities and policy priorities, and there are things like that, again, going back to some of these that I just listed off, the oversight, for instance, 231, the council will place on a ballot an initiative to establish an independent office of investigation external to the police department, charged with fully investigating incidents to police misconduct and police shootings. Quite frankly, it doesn't matter what the police department said on disagree, agree, or whatever, like that required the council to take a totally different action that said, yes, we want to move forward and do that. That would imply, it would require negotiations with our Police Officers Association before putting something on a ballot. We've done this before on this council, as we did actually strengthen the Office of the Independent Police Auditor, and that took years to get there. And so again, I'm hoping those that are listening are not necessarily, and hopefully now with my comment, are not necessarily going to look at this and go, wow, these are not being done or being, crossed off the list, and that's it. That's the end of story. The reality is that some of these, and a good number of them, and I think you can start with the ones that have the little X mark under the CMO management level, are things that are going to require a different path to be completed, and they can quite frankly be taken up year over year independently with the city council. And so that's just the first thought, I think, because at the end of the day, the more, I think, controversial items for our community and those that have participated in all of these processes of providing recommendations are going to be those 50 plus items that are quote unquote right we disagree with, and because they're going to want to understand why and why would we not do it or what is the alternative. And so I do think that we may want to start to maybe break this up in the future, where we begin to focus on the work that's still being done or implemented, right? And what are the challenges? Why is it being delayed? You've put that in there. You've broken up into good categories, and then maybe have a process where we're also engaging on what about these ones that we disagree, and what does the future for that look like? The other, I think, response that I have is in regards to this really being that first opportunity to have a comprehensive response from the city administration, and we haven't created a formal process to then present that, at least to our RIPS task force, which was the formal group that we created, to then say, hey, this is it. Today is the first opportunity that they have to provide comment, and obviously it's in the fashion of a 2-minute comment. I do think that would be valuable. So I'll ask the city manager's office what that might look like. Obviously that would require a little bit of funding and some coordination, but what would that look like to try and take this report that we've had today and actually maybe present it to that RIPS committee, and which obviously at this point is right dissolved, or it's no longer together, but I imagine we can pull together. We had someone like Poncho, right, that was present today, but I'm curious to get feedback from them before the council again continues to take action on it. What would that look like? And you talked about it, Lieutenant, about, hey, you want to create a formal process in all of these policies to engage the community. I'm looking at, though, comprehensively, I think it would be great to provide this presentation that we've had today to that committee, and then be able to get some feedback, understand the discrepancies, maybe better describe to them what I just described now, and hey, not all of this is under the police department's purview, right? It's really a council decision. So what does that sound like to you, Lee?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. And, we had I would say, an unofficial meeting with some of the RIPS committee members last week to kind of ask that very question, what does this next step look like? Because I think we're actually open to what that next step and what that forum is. I don't think we actually need funding for it. I know where I want to be, and I think where the chief wants to be as we go into the budget season or priority setting with the mayor and council next year is, right now on the roadmap, police reform's work plan is on there. And so our roadmap is change initiatives, and it's supposed to keep us very focused and have us look at what we need to change in this 1 year. So that's pretty hard when there's 500 things, right? So I think our next step with the community is to take this report and what are the things, as Councilmember Jimenez kind of mentioned, what are transformative things, what are the community looking for in this first year, but obviously this needs to be kind of a multi-year thing. So I think it's presenting it to a broader group of stakeholders and listening and seeking to understand what their priorities are and where they're going to be, so that we have the opportunity to present something if the council wants it, as part of their deliberative process around priority setting and budget.
Yeah, I like that. In essence, a prioritization process in itself with the community, right? Prior to the council having its priority setting discussion, where we can then engage. Yes, and that has to be, I think maybe frustrating for the community, but it has to be accepted that we're not going to be able to move on all 500 plus recommendations. Went out, half of that, because almost half are completed, but in a year or 2 years, right? And if we were to have a few of them, especially like Councilmember Jimenez said, that may be felt as is the most impactful. Well, then if we had that understanding, could we then work on those and prioritize those in the year ahead? That I think would be really helpful, and so I appreciate hearing that. What funds are there remaining from? I believe it's around 800,000 or so. What funds may be remaining from what was allocated to begin this process and begin some of the work?
This is Peter Hamilton, assistant to the city manager in the city manager's office. And we go through that on the last paragraph of page 10 of the staff report. So we spent about $15,000 on translation services as part of the RIPS process. And that was mostly in the last fiscal year. So in the current fiscal year, we're budgeted for $788,000. Of that amount, we've set aside $155,000 for senior analyst position in the police department to begin implementing compliance audits. And I believe the council heard that a few months ago. And we've set aside $320,000 for a consultant contract to provide racial equity training to the police department. And this is fulfilling direction that staff received back in 2020, and that was part of the original police reforms work plan. And so with those commitments, the remaining total that's available is $310,000.
Thank you, and I do see that now spelled out very clearly in page 10 and 11 of the memo. Do we have an idea on the remaining 310? I know we heard from the community members today with the concept of potentially beginning to seed funding for process improvement. So what is the idea at the moment with that 310,000?
So I think the suggestion we include in the report is to, as Lieutenant Donahue noted, many of the recommendations have to do with community engagement, and that's a priority for the department as well. So we're recommending spending probably around 100,000 of that total on a community engagement consultant, and maybe Lieutenant Donahue, if you want to elaborate on that.
Thank you. Yes, so we have numerous recommendations that refer to our community engagement and how we engage with our community. So what we've done is we're combining all of those recommendations into one big project, and that's what Deputy Chief Shab is working on right now. I mentioned it during the presentation. So this community engagement consultant is expected to come in and look at how we interact with our community as a whole, but every microcosm therein, right? How do we interact best with the Vietnamese community, the Sikh community, every aspect of the city of San Jose, right? And using that consultant, we're going to be able to develop a community engagement plan for our department as a whole. And then each divisional captain will have a community engagement plan for their particular division. And it's also going to inform how we keep moving forward with some of our programs. For example, one of the recommendations from the Youth RIPS Committee was to stop doing Team Kids. They didn't like Team Kids. but we've also had other recommendations that talk about engaging youth. So they oppose each other. And so this community engagement consultant is going to look at that and say, okay, is Team Kids effective? And if it is, then we should continue it. Maybe we should bolster it, keep it as it is. It's going to be an informed decision using a third party to educate ourselves at the best way to engage the community. So the consultant itself will cost about $100,000, we believe, to be able to pay for the entire project. From that, we are also going to have some money that we need to spend to be able to do these things. They're not free to engage our community in all the different ways. Like if we have a big community meeting and we need to rent a space or maybe have food served or technology solutions to gather information and input from the public, things like that, that's going to be dependent on what comes out of the community engagement consultant.
Okay, thank you. That is helpful. I was intrigued by one part of the recommendation from our community members, which was the potential creation of a city manager level resource in what they described as an Office of Violence Prevention. I've done a little research at this point on it, searching on Google, but understand there are a couple cities that do have that. There obviously have to be quite a bit of work put into if we would even need or want something like that. What would that look like in partnership with the county? But I do know from experience of creating the Office of Immigrant Affairs and then the Office of Racial Equity here in the city, the benefit of having a designated person and team, and then ideally to grow that, to be able to tackle some of these issues. At the moment, I know that this work essentially is tasked under our assistant city manager, correctly, and it's so it doesn't necessarily have an office outside of the police department, right, under your watch, Lee, and then Peter, right, the support and all that. But essentially, at some point, if this falls off of the priority, it doesn't exist in anybody's wheelhouse. And so I do think that that would be beneficial. That ultimately would have to be a decision clearly by a future council if they wanted to fund something like that. I don't want to dictate exactly where the fund should go, but I think it would be a benefit. I know in the past when we've created newer offices, we've tried to set aside several $100,000 during the budget process to do so. I think if there are remaining funds from that 310 outside of this outreach and consultant you want to use, I think that it'd be wise to try and maybe hold and set aside, and I'll just put that recommendation out there, not necessarily again a request or something I think to vote on, but to yourself, Lee, and then Chief, as you are looking at this, I think you should be using that resource to go out and engage the community as you are intending to do. But as we come across the budget process in early next year, I think it would be wise for our council colleagues to consider, do we want to have some of that as a set aside? Do we want to seed more of it to really double down on this work? Because I do believe at the end of the day, we will need, and no offense, Lee, but I think we need some other entity in the city to sort of own this work, just like we've had with Zulma with the Office of Racial Equity, and could even fit under that wheelhouse like we've done with the Office of Immigrant Affairs. So there could be many places for it, but I think that that should be the future of some of this, and that it shouldn't all be tasked with our police department, which right now is sort of, it's almost ironic in a sense, because a lot of what we're talking about is sort of the overburdening of policing and police officers, and then now we're overburdening you with the solutions, or with the reforms as well, saying, hey, this is being tasked to you. Let's take a look at it. I think you're doing a good job, and I know that you have the support of our city manager's office. But quite frankly, I do think that some of this needs to be led at a slightly higher level, because it's not all and shouldn't all fall on your lap. A lot of it actually entails things that aren't even in the city's purview, right? Talking about things like the recommendation, I know that it came up from Derek. I think it was 439, and let me pull it up real quick. So 439 is being denoted as completed by our police department here in their response, which I think is appropriate. But I can understand the way that Derek is thinking about it himself, so I'll read it. It says, invest in mobile response teams that can respond to incidents involving individuals experiencing a mental health crisis. These teams will consist of service providers from community-based organizations rather than law enforcement to de-escalate crisis situations and provide connections to resources and support. And now I'll read our police department's response. The department deploys 2 mobile response teams for persons experiencing a mental health crisis. The Mobile Crisis Assessment Team, or MCAT, is a group of specialty trained officers who respond to assist patrol in events where members of the public are experiencing a mental health crisis. MCAT also conducts follow-up with individuals who repeatedly require police services. The Psychiatric Emergency Response Team, or PERT, is an officer paired with a mental health professional who responds similarly to MCAT, but bring an even higher level of expertise. And I'll note that that mental health professional is not an officer. Both programs are currently deployed in the Bureau of Field Operations. I think it's an appropriate response to say, hey, we are doing this. We have an alternative approach to responding to people having a mental health crisis. We even have a non-officer, partnered up in approach. And quite frankly, I would say under the police department's purview and abilities, that's about all you can do, right? If we were to tell you, no, we don't want any officers, we want a mental health crisis response only and a different chain, that doesn't fall under the police department then. That is a completely separate, and like our assistant chief was saying, that, well, some of these things, right, may be a totally different conversation. And if we want a whole new type of response, which I will mention that the county is looking at piloting, right, a program, no, they're piloting a program now, to have a different type of response that is managed solely through their mental health team, and outside of PD's purview, where you call up and you get a response. Not well, yes, that doesn't even involve us. We will be aware of it, and the community will hopefully be aware of it. But in the end, it's not something that our police department can create or change or eliminate. And much like the assistant chief said, we're also not going to respond to calls for service simply because right, the community would like somebody else to respond, but that other person doesn't exist yet, or that other program doesn't exist yet. So I understand both sides of that, right? The frustration from our community member Derek that says, hey, I don't think that that's completed yet. And I would say, yeah, in their mind and the way that they had presented it, it's probably not completed. But as much as the PD can do, as much as the city can do under our purview today, it is completed to that extent. And with that, that's going back to why I think, if we really wanted to be even more comprehensive about some of these reimagining efforts and the bigger reforms, it's going to require, even beyond the city as a collaborative effort, it's going to require our county, right? And we've done this now a couple of times with sexual assault and other services where we've done joint meetings, right? And we've had to bring in, we just had one recently on the release process, right? The site and arrest and release process, and no bail, and right, and we had that conversation, and we had to bring in our other partners because, again, it's not just our police department in the city that is responsible or has the authority over some of that. And when I look at over these 530 recommendations, I see many in there that require other partners. And so I think that also needs to be a consideration for not only this committee, but the council, in how might you begin to engage not just the public, but how are we going to engage some of these other partners? The other example I'll give, because this example is in here, but I won't point to the number, but it was in regards to traffic enforcement and vehicle stops and things that may need to change at the state level, right? And before we can simply allow somebody else differently here in the city maybe to do a different job. So it just, again, we could even go higher, right, than just the county and have to go up to the state on some of this level of advocacy. I will note that the council is advocating at least the legislative, right, on our legislative agenda, to make some of these changes at the state, and that may be the extent of what we can do until those changes are made at the state. All of that, right, is confusing for me as a council member who deeply understands it. I can imagine for our community, right, when they look at this and they say, hey, we've worked with you, you've created these committees, you've asked for recommendations, and now we're not really seeing major change happening, or at least quick enough. And it really gets complicated and complex when you start to drill down onto some of these changes. And so I do think that some of that needs to be thought in regards to, do we need to consider, inviting in other partners? Are they joint meetings with this committee? Are they re-engaging the RIPS task force, right, to provide ongoing feedback? Is it seeding some funding in next year's budget for a newer Office of Violence Prevention, So all of those things I think are good to think about. The recommendation I will ask for here today to try and help with some of this is that rather than come back in a year, I will ask that you come back in 6 months, and that we do it biannually, or at least next year we do it twice. So we come back 6 months. At that point, what I would be looking for is sort of just a status update, right, of a lot of what you presented today, but a status update on some of the ongoing work that you're doing. Hopefully, between that 6 month time frame, to our city manager's office and Lee, we can have figured out how we're going to engage the RIPS task force and community members, right, on getting some initial feedback. And the timeline may be a little late for the priority setting process, which I don't know if we're planning again for March or right before the budget, but I think it would be wise to have some of that feedback in a sooner time frame than 12 months from now, and be able to understand how we're going to move this along. I would ask too that at a minimum, maybe we're not able to pull the RIPS task force together, that we coordinate with at least their chair or their prior chair, Poncho, and see if they're willing to participate in these conversations, maybe outside of the 2-minute context. That's what we had when the presentation came earlier this year to council. I think that's helpful. It just would provide a little bit better dialogue and getting some of that community feedback. Let me look back, see if I made any other notes. No, I think that's it. So that would be my request then for the maker of the motion that accepts this. And with that, I'm done.
I'll move approval with what Raul said.
Second.
Thank you. And before we go to a vote, I see we did have a late hand come up. I believe that's Mr. Soto. We can go ahead and take that final comment and then we'll vote. He didn't give comment already, right? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Thank you for the courtesy, Councilman. Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. There was a report that was put out that the Mercury News did not account for. The LA Times produced a newspaper article in April of this year, and they talked about specifically the dialogue between two officers about a Vietnamese woman. And they actually held her against her will inside of her car until she was going to pay some money that was a part of some kind of dispute between neighbors. And the dialogue that went on between those two men, if a citizen had that kind of dialogue, that citizen would have been arrested. They would have been arrested on the spot for a hate crime.
Well, I will have to ask you to focus the comments on the presentation we had.
I am. I'm talking about the police department, correct?
Yeah, but not in general, in regards to the presentation we just had and the recommendations.
Okay, well, the presentation that you had, it's impotent, and here's why. Is because a man got his testicles blown off. People got their clavicles crushed, people got their knees crushed, and you had that little officer standing there antagonizing the crowd. Okay, and then we had the chief abandon the city. The chief, he abandoned it. He got ghosted. He went to Dallas. So he left it with Chief Mata. Okay, and Chief Mata, and I believe in Chief Mata. I believe in Deputy Chief Joseph McFadden. I've talked to all of these officers. I've talked to these cops, and I believe that they're dealing with a culture that has not changed. It has not changed. And until we get to that point where we can talk about the fact that there is sadism that exists in our police department, that there is racism that still, and there is classism that still exists in our police department, until we can be very honest about that and start calling them.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll take a roll call vote.
There is one more hand that just went up. I'm not sure if you wanted to take that.
Sure, but I'll ask that we end public comment after this because we do have to get to the vote. Thank you.
Elizabeth?
Hi, my name is Elizabeth, and I'm a part of the Race Equity Community Safety Committee with Sacred Heart on Community Service. Who's been involved with the RIPS process since the beginning. And Just after hearing these, your feedback, Raul, Councilmember Perales, and Councilmember Jimenez, just really kind of disappointed because I hear a lot of just like, don't blame the police, don't blame the police. And as a council, we need to take action. As a council, we need, there's things to be done. And so we are waiting for these things to get done. And it is a lot of proposals, but there's, thinking specifically about the one where about trust and in terms of having alternatives, it's like, if the community is asking for police not to come out, for police not to respond to mental health crisis, and you have officers, even though they have mental health training, like, you have officers come, that's still traumatizing, and that's still antagonizing for folks. And so what we need is for you to come up with these solutions, to put in the work, to contact social workers, to contact people who aren't police, to be able to respond to those calls, so that we do have a system in place and we don't just continue as things are, because that's not good enough, especially San Jose, especially people of color with mental health issues. Like, we know what happens, and our community isn't safe if we continue this way.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll do a roll call vote.
Arenas,
Yes.
Jones, Jones, Mahan,
Aye.
Jimenez,
Aye.
Perales.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That'll conclude our agenda. We'll now go to open forum. And just as a reminder, the open forum comments are on items that were not on today's agenda.
Blair.
Hi, thank you. Blair Beekman here. What I tried to say at my first public comment before it cut off was that this will be the last meeting for a few city council persons, or one of the last meetings. Just very much of a thank you for all the work you've done over the years now. Incredibly awesome words by Councilperson Perales on the last item. Just to quickly comment, he very nicely navigated a hopeful future for all of us. Thank you. It's with that said, hopefully I can talk about my tech accountability issues, but I hope that with the new administration coming in and new council persons, we can really rely on what city government has been trying to practice and study over the years now, about more open practices for the future of technology, and not just an abundance of new technology itself. We're at a time to really consider a future of open, accountable practices. And if the new mayor-elect is really concerned with common sense values and ideas, he'll want to be considering technology practices where we don't dump in a ton of technology in a local community when it's already there. And we have to be considering just our better selves, our better practices. Local government is working on these things. They are trying to learn how to do these things better. And it's with the last item also. I just hope our new incoming administration and community will be real patient to what city government is trying to learn to do better. And we have a continuance and a continuum of good practices that we're trying to understand ourselves better as a whole community process. Good luck how we do that in the next few months and years, and good luck to ourselves how we grow as a city. Thanks for your time, and happy November to everyone. Thanks.
Paul.
Yes, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. I'd like to talk about my police department in general. I know cops. I grew up with cops. There's cops from the Horseshoe. There was deputies. We produced everything from criminals to cops in the Horseshoe. And so I grew up with some cops. Made it all the way to working side by side with our Chief Mata. One of my best homeboys was working with Chief Mata that I grew up with. And so I respect my police officers, okay? But what I don't respect and what is not worthy of respect is a racist cop. That is not worthy of me respect. That's worthy of my contempt. And I will continue to hold contempt to every single racist cop that looks at me and says that I do not deserve to exist in society, that I do not deserve to have a breath in my lungs, that I do not deserve to be on this side of town at this time of night. That I will forever hold in contempt. I would hope that I had some other citizens, you know, on this council that would feel the same way, but I'm kind of feeling like maybe I don't. Maybe I don't have people that are, because when you wear that San Jose PD badge and you have that on, then you represent San Jose. That's what you do when you have that badge on. And when you fail, because you are held to a higher standard, why? Because you swear an oath. You swear an oath. Other jobs don't, but you do. And so what I would like to see out of this police department, I want a citizens panel in at the cadet level. I want to start seeing citizens like myself give a class to the cadets in the first week of their training and then the last week of their training to see what they learned. And I want to be able to evaluate them. I think I'm in a very, very good position to be able to hold that kind of position, considering my experience.
Back to the committee.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.